On 10th of June, Diekmann's battalion sealed off Oradour-sur-Glane and ordered everyone within to assemble in the village square to have their identity papers examined. This included 6 non-residents who happened to be bicycling through the village when the SS unit arrived. The women and children were locked in the church, and the village was looted. The men were led to 6 barns and sheds, where machine guns were already in place. According to a survivor's account, the SS men then began shooting, aiming for their legs. When victims were unable to move, the SS men covered them with fuel and set the barns on fire. Only 6 men managed to escape. One of them was later seen walking down a road and was shot dead. In all, 190 Frenchmen died. The SS men next proceeded to the church and placed an incendiary device beside it. When it was ignited, women and children tried to escape through the doors and windows, only to be met with machine gun fire. 247 women and 205 children died in the attack. The only survivor was 47-year-old Marguerite Rouffanche. She escaped through a rear sacristy window, followed by a young woman and child. All 3 were shot, 2 of them fatally. Rouffanche crawled to some pea bushes and remained hidden over night until she was found and rescued the next morning. About 20 villagers had fled Oradour-sur-Glane as soon as the SS unit had appeared. That night, the village was partially razed. Several days later, the survivors were allowed to bury the 642 dead inhabitants of Oradour-sur-Glane who had been killed in just a few hours. Adolf Diekmann said the atrocity was in retaliation for the partisan activity in nearby Toul and the kidnap and murder of SS commander Helmut Kempfe, who was burned alive in a field ambulance with other German soldiers. The Treaty of Compiègne, signed on June 10, 1624, was a mutual defense alliance between the Kingdom of France and the Dutch Republic, for an initial period of 3 years. One of a series of treaties designed to isolate Spain. France agreed to subsidize the Dutch in their War of Independence in return for naval assistance and trading privileges. It ultimately proved controversial, since its provisions were used to require the Protestant Dutch to help suppress their French co-religionists. In La Rochelle, the Lidice massacre was the complete destruction of the village of Lidice, in the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, now the Czech Republic, in June 1942 on orders from Adolf Hitler and the successor of the Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler, Kurt. In reprisal for the assassination of Reich Protector Reinhard Heydrich in the late spring of 1942, all 173 men from the village who were over 15 years of age were executed on June 10, 1942. A further 11 men from the village who were not present at the time were later arrested and executed soon afterwards, along with several others who were already under arrest. Out of a total 503 inhabitants, 307 women and children were sent to a makeshift detention center in a Kladno school. Of these, 184 women and 88 children were deported to concentration camps. 7 children who were considered racially suitable and thus eligible for Germanization were handed over to SS families, and rest were sent to the Helmno extermination camp, where they were gassed. The Associated Press, quoting German radio transmissions which it received in New York, said, "All male grown-ups of the town were shot, while the women were placed in a concentration camp, and the children were entrusted to appropriate educational institutions." Approximately 340 people from Lidice were murdered in the German reprisal, 192 men, 60 women and 88 children. After the war ended, only 143 women and 17 children returned. Bridget Bishop was the first person executed for witchcraft during the Salem witch trials in 1692. 19 were hanged, and 1, Giles Corey, was pressed to death. Altogether, about 200 people were tried. On June 10, 1944, for over 2 hours, Waffen SS troops of the 2nd Company, I/7 Battalion, 4th SS Polizeipanzergrenadier Division under the command of the 26-year-old SS Hauptsturmführer Fritz Laudenbach went door-to-door and massacred Greek civilians, as part of savage reprisals for a partisan attack upon the unit's convoy. A total of 228 men, women and children were killed in Distomo, a small village near Delphi. According to survivors, SS forces bayoneted babies in their cribs, stabbed pregnant women, and beheaded the village priest. However, another source, Life, the First Decade, Time Incorporated, 1979, page 138. Library of Congress Catalog Card Number 79 to 88091, refers to the 1,000 citizens slaughtered by the Germans. Following the massacre, A secret field police agent accompanying the German forces informed the authorities that, contrary to Laudenbach's official report, the German troops had come under attack several miles from Distomo and had not been fired upon, with mortars, machine guns and rifles from the direction of Distomo. An inquiry was convened. Laudenbach admitted that he had gone beyond standing orders, but the tribunal found in his favor, holding that he had been motivated, not by negligence or ignorance, but by a sense of responsibility towards his men.